If you make $85,000 a year and your net worth is negative, you are not middle class. You're in the bottom 25% of Americans. And here's the scary part. Millions of people think they're middle class when they're not even close. Because this has nothing to do with your income. It comes down to one number, your net worth. And when you calculate that number, most people realize they're way lower than they thought. So before you assume you're doing fine, there's a good chance you're not. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly where you stand. Real data, real math, and what it actually takes to move up.
A few months ago, I was at a barbecue with some friends. Good people, good jobs, a teacher, a nurse, a guy in sales making decent money. Someone asked, "Do you guys feel middle class?" Everyone said yes, without hesitating. And I got quiet, because I just spent a week going deep on the Federal Reserve's wealth data, and I knew something they didn't. Most of them weren't middle class. Not even close. Not by the actual definition. Here's the thing. When most people say middle class, they mean their income, their paycheck, the neighborhood they live in, the car they drive. But wealth class has nothing to do with any of that. It comes down to one number. Your net worth. Everything you own minus everything you owe. And when you actually calculate that number, most Americans find out they're not where they think they are. Today, I'm walking you through the entire wealth ladder, from the bottom all the way to the top 10%. Real numbers, real math, no sugarcoating. By the end, you'll know exactly where you sit and what it actually takes to climb. Not hope, the actual math. Your income is not your wealth. Think about how you actually feel about money. When you get a raise, you feel wealthier. When you see your salary go up, you feel like you're moving up. But here's the thing. Your paycheck tells you how much money flows through your life. Your net worth tells you how much stays. Net worth is simple. Everything you own, home, savings, retirement accounts, car, investments, minus everything you owe, mortgage, car loans, student debt, credit cards. That single number determines where you actually sit on the wealth ladder, not your salary, not your job title, not your zip code. The Federal Reserve tracks exactly what American households own and what they owe, and some of these numbers are going to surprise you. Let me introduce you to Tyler. Tyler is 34, marketing manager, makes $85,000 a year. After taxes, about $5,200 a month. He rents a decent apartment for $1,600, drives a 2022 sedan, contributes a little to his 401k every month. If you met Tyler, you'd think, this guy has it together, solidly middle class. Let's run his actual net worth. On the asset side, his car is worth $22,000. He has $12,000 in his 401k, $3,000 in a savings account. Total assets, $37,000. On the debt side, $18,000 left on the car loan, $26,000 in student loans. Total debt, $44,000. $37,000 minus $44,000, Tyler's net worth is negative $7,000. He's not middle class. He's in the bottom 25% of American households. Think about that for a second. Tyler has been earning a solid income for years. He feels middle class. He looks middle class. And the math says he's not even close. That's not a character flaw. That's a gap between what we're told wealth looks like and what it actually is. And I want to be clear. Tyler is millions of Americans. Good income, reasonable life, and a net worth that doesn't match the story they've been telling themselves. The money comes in, the money goes out. Income looks middle class. Net worth doesn't. That gap between how wealth feels and what the math actually says is what this entire video is about. And the first number on that ladder is going to surprise most people watching this. Bottom 25%. Net worth under $23,000. This is where Tyler sits right now. And here's what most people get wrong about this bracket. They assume it's all minimum wage workers or people without jobs. It's not. This bracket is full of people earning $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year who simply haven't built assets yet. The income looks fine. The net worth doesn't. A huge chunk of this group, tens of millions of households, actually has a net worth at or below zero. Their debts completely wipe out whatever they own. For Tyler, the problem is clear. No home equity, the single biggest wealth builder for most American households. Debt that exceeds his assets. Retirement savings that, while started, are far too small relative to his income and his age. But here's the thing. The next bracket up might look more secure. It's not quite what it seems.
Lower middle class, $23,000 to $179,000. A typical household here looks like this. A home with $60,000 in equity, maybe $15,000 in retirement accounts, $8,000 in savings. Subtract a car loan, net worth around $71,000. That sounds decent, but look closer. Most of that net worth is locked inside the house. You can't spend home equity on groceries. You can't use it to cover an emergency unless you sell or borrow against it. The actual liquid cushion, money you can access right now, might be $10,000 to $15,000. A job loss, a medical emergency, a major car repair, any of these can destabilize a household at this level quickly. They have net worth on paper. They don't always have security in practice. And the median, the exact middle of American wealth, tells an even more uncomfortable story.
The median, $193,000. The exact midpoint of American household wealth. Half of all households have more, half have less. Most people think they know where this number is. They're almost always wrong, and usually in the wrong direction. At this level, maybe $120,000 in home equity, $50,000 in retirement accounts, $15,000 in savings, some manageable debt. But here's the number that should actually bother you. Strip out home equity. Only count the money a household can actually access and use. The median liquid net worth is somewhere around $30,000 to $40,000. That's the real financial cushion for half of America. And that number explains why one unexpected event, one layoff, one medical bill, one recession, can send a household spiraling. The median isn't broke, but the median isn't secure either. Now, here's where the ladder actually starts to change, and it's not where most people expect. Upper middle class, $193,000 to $610,000. This is where something fundamental shifts. Below this level, most net worth is just home equity, people building wealth almost accidentally by paying their mortgage. But in this bracket, you start to see intentional wealth building, retirement accounts growing, taxable investment accounts, a diversified asset mix. At $250,000, most of your net worth is still in your house. By $500,000, investments start catching up. Half the house, half the market. That rebalancing is critical because investments compound. A house just sits there. The gap from $600,000 to $1 million feels enormous when you're looking up. But the math shows it takes far less time to go from $600,000 to $1 million than it took to go from 0 to $600,000. Compound growth is exponential. It kicks in hard right here. But the next bracket, this is where the entire financial picture flips upside down. Upper class, $610,000 to $1.72 million. Top 25%. And at this level, investments now dominate net worth. Probably 70 to 75% of total net worth is in financial assets. Retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, business equity, rental properties. Home equity is still there, but it's a smaller slice. This is the inversion point. Below this bracket, your house is your biggest asset. Above it, your investments are. And it comes down to one thing: what you keep and what you invest, not what you earn. Top 10%. $1.72 million and above. A portfolio of $1.72 million invested at a modest 4% annually generates about $69,000 a year in passive income without touching the principal. That's more than the median American household earns from a job, generated entirely by investments while the owner sleeps. Work becomes a choice, not a necessity. Reaching the top 10% is achievable for many households over a working lifetime. The problem is, most people never run the math. They just keep working and hoping. And hoping is not a wealth strategy. But here's what all of those brackets miss, and this is the part that changes everything. Here's the blind spot in everything I just showed you. All those brackets are for all American households lumped together, a 25-year-old and a 65-year-old against the same benchmark. That makes no sense. Federal Reserve data breaks it down by age. Under 35, about $39,000. Ages 35 to 44, $136,000. Ages 45 to 54, $247,000. Ages 55 to 64, $365,000. Notice how fast those numbers jump. A decade makes an enormous difference. And that's exactly why where you are right now, relative to your age, tells you something much more important than where you rank overall. Back to Tyler. He's 34 with a net worth of negative $7,000. Against the overall population, bottom 25%. Against his age group, where the median is $39,000, he's $46,000 below the median for people his own age, roughly the 10th percentile. 90% of households his age have a higher net worth. Take someone who's 45 with a net worth of $200,000. Against the overall population, right around the median. Feels average, feels fine. But against their age group, where the median is $247,000, they're actually below the midpoint for their peers. And the 75th percentile for 45-year-olds is $737,000. They are not close to the upper brackets for their generation. They thought they were average. They're actually behind. Now flip it. A 28-year-old with a net worth of $144,000. Against the overall population, lower middle class, nothing special. But against their age group, roughly the 75th percentile, ahead of 3 out of 4 households their age. Same number, completely different story. This is why age-adjusted benchmarks matter so much. A 30-year-old who's behind has decades of compounding ahead of them. A 55-year-old who's behind has a much narrower window. The number matters, but the context around that number matters even more. And most people are comparing themselves to the wrong benchmark entirely. So Tyler knows exactly where he stands. The question is, what does he do about it? And the answer depends entirely on which path he chooses next. 3 paths, same person. The gap between them is bigger than you'd expect. 3 scenarios, same person, same starting point. Watch what happens. Scenario 1, Tyler coasts. Minimum payments on everything. Bare minimum 401k contributions, about 2%. Spending everything else. His student loans take 10+ years to pay off. His 401k grows slowly. By 54, net worth around $120,000. That sounds like progress until you realize the median for 55 to 64-year-olds is $365,000. 2 decades of solid income, barely moving the needle. That's the cost of coasting. But what if Tyler makes just one change? Scenario 2. Tyler gets intentional. He cuts discretionary spending and frees up $700 a month. Some goes towards student loans, some into his 401k. Student loans? Gone in about 4 years. After that, all $700 goes into investing every single month. At 38, he buys a modest house. At 7% average annual return, by 54, his portfolio is worth roughly $350,000. Add $150,000 in home equity, Tyler sits around $500,000 in net worth. Upper middle class, 75th percentile for his age group. Same income, same starting point. Different choices. And if he pushes harder, The math gets even more interesting. Scenario 3. Tyler gets aggressive. He increases his income, side project, job switch, skill development, to $110,000 within 5 years. Lives on his original budget. Investable surplus balloons. $1,500 a month into investments after eliminating debt in 3 years. At 37, he house hacks a duplex, lives in one unit, rents the other, cuts housing costs and builds equity simultaneously. By 54, investment portfolio around $700,000. Real estate equity another $300,000. Total net worth roughly $1 million. Upper class, top 25%, well above the 90th percentile for his age. From negative $7,000 to $1 million in 20 years. No inheritance, no windfall. Just the compounding effect of intentional decisions made consistently over time. The math works. It just requires actually doing the math and then acting on it. I've seen people start from worse than Tyler's position and end up in scenario 3, not because they were exceptional, because they finally saw the actual numbers and decided to take them seriously. But here's what stops most people from ever getting to scenario 2 or 3. And it's not income. It's not luck. It's 5 specific mistakes. Mistake 1. Confusing income for wealth. When you get a raise, you feel richer. When your salary goes up, you feel like you're moving forward. But if expenses rise with income, which they almost always do, net worth barely moves. Income is a flow. Wealth is a stock. They are not the same thing. Mistake 2. Treating home equity as a complete wealth strategy. Owning a home is genuinely valuable, but treating it as your entire wealth strategy is dangerous. Home equity is illiquid. It's concentrated in one asset. It doesn't compound the way investments do. A house is a good asset. It is not a complete plan. And here's where it gets worse. Mistake 3. Waiting to invest until debt is completely gone. Every year you're not invested, you're missing compounding, and the debt never fully disappears. Once student loans are gone, there's always another reason to wait. Tyler's scenario 2 shows exactly this. Investing $300 a month while paying down debt, rather than waiting, makes an enormous difference over 20 years. Mistake 4. Not knowing your actual number. Most people know their income. Most know their credit score. Almost nobody knows their net worth, and you cannot manage what you don't measure. Mistake 5. Comparing yourself to the wrong benchmark. If you're 32 and compare your net worth to the overall median of $193,000, you're going to feel terrible. But the median for under 35 households is $39,000. Context changes everything. Use the age-adjusted benchmarks. They're the honest ones.
Lower class, middle class, upper class. Which one are you? You had an answer when this video started. Now you have the actual numbers to check it. And if where you stand isn't where you expected, that's not a failure. That's information. The wealth ladder isn't fixed. People move up it every single day. Not by hoping, by running the numbers and making decisions that match. Here's what I want you to do right now. Pull up your phone. Calculate your net worth. Everything you own minus everything you owe. Then find your bracket, both overall and for your age. Because once you know your real number, you stop guessing and start planning. Drop your bracket in the comments. I read every single one. And if this changed how you think about where you actually stand, a like helps this reach more people who need to see these numbers. I'm Buck. I'll see you in the next one.